Welcome to season 2 of the Energy Upgrade podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa, master biohacker and successful entrepreneur. In season 1 of the Energy Upgrade, you got to have a taste for my obsession in all things health, energy, entrepreneurship, spirituality, and biohacking, or how to take radical responsibility in living a life by design. As a certified health coach, integrated health practitioner, kinesiologist, and seasoned entrepreneur who built and sold a 7-figure business, I want to dive deeper in this season 2. After healing myself from burnout, from my health falling apart, my hormones leaving my body, I'm here to share everything I wish someone had told me. Every day, I have the incredible opportunity to be mentoring women and supporting them in becoming true magnetic energy bombs. I'm helping them remember who they were all along. It's so powerful that I want to take you in on the journey, almost as if you were a fly on the wall. You'll find that I'm not your typical health coach, and I'm not your typical business coach either. I'm somewhere in between with a lot of spirituality sprinkled in there. This podcast is a sacred place where I come and share with you things that will bring you a high return on investment, because yes, I'm all about ROI. Life goes fast, and if I can show you a shortcut or two, I'll have succeeded at bringing you value. Thank you for being here. Let's go.
Your time is now. Your energy is your life force. You want to be able to magnetize your wellness dreams. A liver detox is the fastest way to start healing. You can and you will.
Welcome back to another episode of the Energy Upgrade. This is your host, Vanessa Grutman. And today, grab a pen and paper because trust me, you're going to want to take some notes. I am joined by fellow integrated health practitioner, Jean-Felix Turcotte, and we are going to be diving into the world of blood chemistry and genetic testing. Now, this is an area of expertise that he has owned in, and it's interesting because what made me want to bring him on the podcast is actually my famous recent experience of attempting to get an annual physical test done here using the healthcare system. And him and I started geeking after. We were like, oh my gosh, why is it so hard to get access to our data? And so I decided to bring him on board just so he can share some of the top blood chemistry tests you should have done on a regular basis. So we tried to do a top 10. We ended up with 11, but trust me, you're going to want to take a note of these. I've also added them in the show notes. There was a lot of information shared here. We went quite deep in some areas. So if ever you feel overwhelmed, take a deep breath. All's going to be okay. We've got you. So just to give you a little bit more information and background on Jean-Felix, he's a passionate integrated health practitioner, and he's trained in functional blood chemistry, genetics, and lab testing. So he's gone over and beyond in terms of certifying himself. He's a certified epigenetics and immune-centric coach. He's an epigenetic and genetic coach. He's also a biohacking expert, a podcaster, and he really began his career as a self-healer, biohacker, and fitness advocate while he was navigating his own chronic digestion challenges and hemochromatosis. And we're going to talk about it during the show today. But just like me, just like everybody else, he's used his own challenges as a way to not only heal himself, but now help others heal themselves. He's an integrated health practitioner, level 1 and level 2. And so he's gone under the mentorship of Dr. Stephen Cabral, just like I have. And he's also intensely pursued his education through functional workshop, blood chemistry certification. He's done metabolic fitness programs. So he's just like, he's an expert on many, many things. And when he's not helping clients with their health struggles or learning through extended education, he enjoys podcasting, strength training, yoga, reading books. He's definitely hungry always for more knowledge. And so I know that this episode is probably going to blow your mind. So let's not wait any further minute, buckle up, and let's get going. Oh, Jean-Felix, welcome to the Energy Upgrade. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Hello, my friend. Thank you so much for having me. Super happy to be here.
And gosh, we just geeked before hitting record. And so we're all pumped up now for
I
a
know.
powerful conversation. You are a fellow IHP. You've done so many cool things. And today, really, I want to take people in the world of epigenetics and genetic testing and blood chemistry and blood testing and all the things that maybe don't appear as sexy, but actually can be life changing. So, first of all, before we go anywhere, I'd love for you to share your journey, how you like discovered this holistic health area. Like, how did you, yeah, because you have quite the story.
I know. It's been quite the journey, and then this is where myself, as a young age, I was dealing with a ton of allergies, that led me to being hospitalized a couple times in the hospital from just like little mosquito bites that I used to have in Quebec. And so always the left side used to have this massive inflammation, the eyes, the ears, the legs, the arm. That's really when it all started as a kid. Went away as I grew up, but then I ended up getting really sick along the way. Traveled to multiple countries. Now we know how prevalent parasites and intestinal health has a tremendous impact on your health. And histamine as well too, allergies. And so that was what happened to me. Things that, and I used to live the standard American diet lifestyle, process a lot of processed foods, a lot of like sugary drinks and you name it, and so not being active. So 2015, I really got myself under control, quit smoking and everything, but I had mononucleosis in 2014. Um, so that took a really hit on me. And so now to understand what happened back then, which they call it the kissing disease, which I was like, oh, you guys, it's Epstein-Barr virus. So
Yeah.
in its active state. But anyways, so that was where my journey began, and got really into wellness more at the end of 2015, 2016. A lot of fasting. Used to be in a network marketing company using a wellness program, did serve its thing, love it. But and then this is where I got started into developing a lot of digestive issues. And so then this is where I thought the food was the problem. But then this is where my journey began on trying all the diets, from pescatarian to vegetarian to vegan for good 2 years. And then I went into reintroduction of meat, through keto, carnivore. And that's when I began IHP in 2019. And I just wrapped up a long-term relationship would cause me a ton of stress. And love the guy by all means, absolutely an amazing, incredible human being. Taught me so much. It's just been an incredible, beautiful memories. A lot to travel that year. Cuba, got really sick there. But the year of 2014, I went to the Philippines. I got really sick there. 2015, I went to Mexico. That was okay. So all these episodes, and then that's is when the big trigger was 2018 of during Christmas time. I ended up getting scabies. This is the biggest nightmare. And this is like has to do with like parasitic issues. But 2019, when I went, the end of 2018, so that Christmas, I came back home and I ended up with an arm infection. So I had wounds spreading all over my left arm, and I had no idea why. It was basically open flash of like development of, but to understand this, I had a lot of toxins built up on the inside in my intestine, and that's what happened. Took an antibiotic, two dose, 500 milligrams, got extremely sick, non-medical advice. I mean, now I understand that the doctor was afraid that I had full-blown sepsis, and I get
Yeah.
it. Don't mess up with this. There's people, recent health people in the industry I saw many months ago, I think last year, um, in that wellness company actually. Some people, yeah, I passed away from full-blown sepsis. And I'm like, yeah, it's a real deal. Like this is where the medical industry are, the medical doctors are there for. They're there to save your
Hmm.
life in critical times, right? And so that was why. But then I went the natural route, cleansed the colon, some probiotics, but it didn't fix everything. And this is when I came and stepped upon, bought an expensive M coil, loved it. I was just desperate for solution, jump into IHB, and then went on to the CBO protocol, did an organic acid test, really helped me to really pinpoint some issues that I had. So I had Clostridial overgrowth, I had bacterial overgrowth, I had a lot of yeast overgrowth. It just made a lot of sense. So I did that protocol, felt so much better, and I was able to actually reintroduce whole food. And my journey went on with educating myself in blood chemistry because there was something missing. And I've always been, to understand from the doctor, everything is normal when you see low or high levels on your blood work results. Because I always ask a copy before. It was always
Oh,
with
yes.
me to, I want to know why my neutrophils always been low and I have neutropenia now. And why is this? And then this is where I came across with genetics with my hemochromatosis. So in the Celtic times, when happens back in history in the potato famine back in the 1600, I saw that show, The Outlanders, on Netflix, and I really like, this is so cool. So you can see all the people that are redhead in that time. So if you're from the Scottish, Irish background, Northern European, you're more prone to be either having obtained these genetics mutations that happen throughout history as a protective mechanism to not make yourself anemic and die from low iron. And so I acquired this from my parents, my mom, my dad, my brother also has a copy. I finally got the diagnosis on blood work because saliva tests will not never be taken serious by a medical doctor. You need to do the genetics in the blood work, and then we can dive in after and how this process has been extremely difficult for myself in a good 3 years and plus in the process to actually getting that blood work, just so I can be referred to an hematologist. So I dove into that, and because when I was on a vegan diet, I was actually drinking Floridex, that iron liquid supplement that isn't very, very known and common. And this is where I have a deep passion for blood work because anemia is not being handled properly. There's a lot of women, a lot of men, either it's iron overload, it's either anemia. It's never just one thing, but it is not being handled. There's a lot of sick people out there, and we have women going on iron transfusion, causing more reactive or oxidative stress, more damage, and they feel like crap
Yeah.
from them. So they're not well prepared. They don't have all of the options, and it's not their fault. It's because we don't have the right information, and the doctors only work with what they have, and they follow protocols, right? So, but here I am. So this is it.
This is how, when I talk about healing and how it never ends, this is it. This is like the chase to the root cause and trying to figure out what the heck. And every time you peel back a layer, there's one more and one more and one more. It takes you down more rabbit holes. But here you are now, having utilized all this, journey that wasn't necessarily fun for you, but now you're able to help your clients and the people that come to you in that same state and give them such great individualized, personalized information. And it's funny because you and I actually were chatting when I shared my my chaotic experience trying to get
Oh,
blood work recently. And I
God.
was just so frustrated. And you messaged me, you're like, oh, yes, that's everything that's wrong about the system. The fact that you literally have to either lie, fake, or make up symptoms to get access to lab work here.
Mhm.
Um, but you're coming in with solutions, and I love that.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, that was my experience. I went to the doctor. I said, listen, I don't feel good. Here's all my symptoms. And I, at this point, I had to just do all of this. And I said, here's the list of what you're going to test. I want to have my copper levels. I want to have my zinc levels. I want to have my C-peptide for blood sugar and insulin sensitivity, which no doctors will run your C-peptide. They only run insulin if you do ask. Otherwise, it's going to be fasted glucose or your hemoglobin A1C.
Yeah.
But those two do not give you your picture. You could still be insulin resistant, even though if those markers are actually in range. And so
Mm,
functional range and there's conventional range. That's
yes.
very different. It's very broad, right? So that's why a lot of people, when you go and see your doctor. And, even this was the shocking thing for me, is because every single time I would go, my neutrophils, which is part of the family of the white blood cells, right? So you have
Yep.
neutrophils that deal with more bacterial issues, lymphocytes with more viral, but could be bacterial as well too. But mine was always really, really low, and it's always asking my questions. And so, it's just been such a diving experience of just really putting your foot down, be like, listen, but I have really other experience. I have a client went to see a private doctor just like you in Quebec and paid $800 to see him and get the most basic blood work, a lipid panel, a CBC, a half-ass CMP, for your electrolytes and all that, but
Yep.
not even complete. And they went, see, and that's it, not even getting tested for your tumor PSA for your prostate. And prostate, the thing is, like the PSA markers example, the only test, if I recall here, was 60 years old in Alberta that they actually start testing for it, which I had a 28-year-old friend dealing with prostate issue that was actually peeing blood out of his
Yeah.
urine. So I'm like, well, listen, we kind of have to be a
Oh,
little
it makes no
proactive,
sense. Like, make it make sense. It makes no sense. When they were like, we can't test any cardiovascular markers, because I was just trying to get like an ApoB and a full detail, like,
Oh, good luck.
cholesterol and triglyceride. Oh, forget it. They didn't want to give me any of this stuff. I mean, I ended up getting half of it. But anyway, it was so frustrating. So let's talk about, I'm just curious to know if someone was really, like, if someone is lucky enough to have a good doctor that will, decide to actually look at root cause and really decide, okay, if you're not feeling well, let's figure this out. Are you on your journey back to you? Are you trying to cultivate more energy, more wealth, more heart, more alignment in your body, your mind, your soul? If so, that's exactly why I have created the Soul and Wealth Club. This club is a sacred membership for women who are ready to heal their bodies, their mind, and soul in order to live a life of purpose with more ease and flow. Now, the intention of this club is really to offer you a space where you can be in the energy of healing. You can be in the mindset of expansion. You can be and tap into the energy of possibilities once a month during our 2-hour virtual retreat, as well as ongoing messages that I will send you every single week with some deep activations also that you can do as meditations to anchor the knowledge. But really, my goal with this space is to help you create aligned actions and momentum in your life, in your business, in your relationships, so that you can feel yourself expanding. There's nothing worse than the status quo in these days and age. We are each responsible for our own healing, our own growth and evolution. And so I have created this membership, this space where you can come in and tap in, be in a high proximity container surrounded by women who are all on the same journey, so that you can really level up. You can really live this life of your dreams. You can co-create with me, with the woman in there, with the universe. And so that this club, the Soul and Wealth Club, can become your sisterhood, a place where you can not only rediscover yourself, but also feel supported doing so. Women are designed to heal and rise together. And so this place is for sure the place you've been craving. This is the room you need to be in to reach new levels of transformation. And the club is available at only $222 a month with a minimum of 3-month commitment, only because I want you to feel this energy for at least 3 consecutive months in order to feel a true shift in your life. And let me tell you, from the feedback and the comment of the women in the urn there, it's incredible. We are creating magic every single day. And this is, I can tell you, this is the room you need to be in if you're wanting to expand and rise this year. The link is in the show notes, and you can always DM me if you have any questions. I hope to see you there. All you have to do is sign in and you'll be in. I hope to see you there. what are the key markers? If you had to, maybe I know you could
Yeah.
we could spend like
Oh, yeah.
2 hours on this, but like if you had to maybe pick 10, and we will I'll add these in the show notes, but what would they
Yeah,
be?
absolutely. And actually, I do have a guide on those. I
Ooh,
created a free guide, which I'll be able to put in the show note. It gives you basically your inflammation marker and all of that. And I will
great.
be doing a revamp out of that too. So, but the top markers, number one, you should always get a CBC panel, period. CBC with differential. That is important. You want to have the differential that will help you either. Are you dealing with a parasitic issue? Are you dealing with more an allergic or histamine response issue, or more viral issue? Is that infection that's bacterial infection and whatnot. So a CBC is really important. Your MCV, those first markers, part of the CBC are so important. This is basically where it tells you a lot about your B vitamin deficiency potentially. So for all of those ladies that have issues with anemia or lack of iron, you got to look at your B vitamins, right? So
Mm-hmm.
lack of B9 and B12 is detrimental for your DNA production, replication. So if you don't have enough B12 and B9, it doesn't mean go out there, because when we talk about genetics, to just high dose, because in the medical realm, when they go and prescribe people, doctors will taste for MTHFR, but I don't want to digress too much. They'll give doses in the upper 5 to 10 to 15 milligrams of methylfolate. That's too much in my book. But anyway, so your CBC, get a
CPC is your blood count. So because we're geeking out
comprehensive.
here, people might be like, what?
That they'll be able to get in Quebec and anywhere in
Yes,
Canada. That's
that's
like
usually no
this
problem.
is what they'll run. No me, but ask for differential. You want to have the breakdown of those. And the second thing will be your CMP, complete metabolic panel. So that is all your electrolytes, your sodium, potassium, calcium, no, see, phosphorus. It's separate, but a lot of people don't test it. You should look at phosphorus as well too. Your GGT. GGT is very important. That will specifically, when it comes down to either for oxidative stress, it's one of the best. There's only three really best marker for oxidative stress. It's your bilirubin, which are part of the CMP, right? And I would also ask for bilirubin direct, which is another one that you can have, right? I know it's really hard to
Oh
pick.
my gosh. Like, okay,
Uh,
let's
but
keep it to
so
10. Keep it
okay,
to
so
10.
CBC, CMP, GGT, your LDH is another one. A lipid panel. So
Yep.
that would be into one. What are we at? Five?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes.
Okay, so I would look for homocysteine. That's going to be maybe a hard one to
That's
get.
going to be hard. Yeah.
And I
That's going to
would
be a hard
get
fight.
eye sensitive CRP. I would get that one too. That is pretty easy to get. HSCRP is really easy. Uh, we're at 7, 6.
Yeah, they didn't want to give me HSCRP.
I would get your hemoglobin A1C,
Yes.
but I
That's
would ask,
usually no
oh,
problem.
and I would ask for C-peptide. It's better than insulin.
Yeah, C-peptide. Okay.
And thyroid, I would do a thyroid panel, but they probably won't do it. They'll just do TSH. That's the problem. My gosh, in my book, other best blood marker. I'm like, oh my God. Uric acid, uric acid. You need to have your uric acid checked as well too. And
Okay,
phosphorus.
we're at 11.
There you go. So
Bingo. Thyroid panel, just so we can add a little note there. We need TSH, T3, T4, reverse T3. Do you test for the antibodies each time,
yeah,
or
so
just
yeah, antibody. It really depends. It really depends on the person, but you
the
could do
symptoms?
your TP antibody TPO. You do your TBG as well, and you could do obviously free T3 and free T4. So normally, if I have something, I look at TSH. And thyroid is not my most like specialty, but if you have an ITPO antibodies, it doesn't mean you have already Hashimoto's. The actual diagnosis for Hashimoto is levels of TPO over 500
Yeah.
when you
But
actually.
hey, good luck getting all of this. Like free T3, free, like,
Oh, and I have an history of this. I had a client, 73-year-old male, came to me, and guess what? We tested his thyroid panel, and his TPO was over 600. Sees one of the top doctors, pays thousands and thousands of dollars here in Edmonton, Alberta, and still never had. My guess was never actually ran, and because he's got the proper. I'm not a doctor, but
mm,
he's got the proper levels to be actually diagnosed with Hashimoto. And I'm like, well, this is a problem. So you have to ask your your physician to really check this out because obviously, there's multiple things that will affect thyroid and high TPO, that's obviously it's a good sign of oxidation, right? So it's a
Yeah.
um yeah,
Yeah.
so one
Yeah,
thing to
blood chemistry is really, I mean, that's the thing is like we're both biohackers. We're all about, longevity, living life full of energy. And one of the low-hanging fruit is just to look at, okay, what the heck is getting in the way? And, blood work can help for this. And I always say, like, these 11 markers you just said, if you can get this done once a year, you're golden. That's like a really great way to be proactive, preventative, to have a good handle on things. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say like that would be the minimum. Like that's me. For me, like blood work, especially if you're actively doing detoxification, that blood panel is actually available without the CRP and the homocysteine is actually available now in the US directly through LabCorp for $80, so
I know. It's
easy.
crazy.
So I offer that now, so at least people have access to those and some a more in-depth inflammatory panel as well too. But that I would run 3, 4 times a year. But me, because I'm actively, and see the problem with that panel, sorry, I forgot to say, iron panel is a must. You need to have a full iron panel,
And
right?
because usually they'll test ferritin.
Just ferritin normally, but you want to
Yes.
check your ferritin, your serum iron, your TIBC, and your saturation percentage as well too. Some will do
Ferritin, TIC, what's the other one?
so ferritin, TIBC,
Okay.
yeah, and then percentage saturation,
Yeah.
and then the last one would be your serum iron, right?
Okay. Oof. Yeah, I've never gotten, like, I've only ever gotten ferritin.
And the biggest, oh, sorry, because I'm like with iron, I have like a love for iron, a love-hate relationship with iron because I'm more on the side of having too much of it and I have to do bloodletting, you
Yes.
know. And so, but the thing is, just testing your ferritin, that can be also elevated because it's an acute reactive marker. So meaning under inflammation, it can go up. And it can go down if you have an infection as well too, right? Because when you have an infection, your body produces this hormone, this protein called epsidin, and epsidin makes sure that tells the body we don't need more iron because that will feed the pathogens, right? So that's why a lot of people have anemia, but anemia of copper deficiency, anemia of vitamin A deficiency, or B vitamin deficiency. So, or you have hemolytic anemia. That's when your red blood cells get broken down from infections, and
Yeah.
there's
And
ton of
parasites,
parasites is
they
one of
feed off of, yeah, they'll feed off of iron.
So any bacterial fungal issues, mold, and all these things, right? So that's why I have a big affinity, and I myself tend to be on the low copper and low zinc levels myself all the time. It's like a bit of a battle. So yeah.
Oh, okay. So, I'm sure people listening are like, "Oh my gosh, my brain, help me." It's a lot of information. We're going to drop these in the show notes, but this is so important. You've mentioned this $80 test, and you told me this is something we can do in Canada. You just have to have someone that will come and draw your blood. Is that correct?
That specific one is only through LabCorp and only in the US. That's it,
We
right?
can't get it in
No,
Canada.
not with LabCorp, but I have a California company that I do have other blood marker. It's a bigger panel. So, but to piggyback on what you just said, you wanted to have a cardiovascular panel. Well, with this company, we can do a whole cardiovascular panel. Your lipid panel, there's actually heart biomarkers when people have heart issues. You have your whole inflammatory panel, which you test for your MPO, your HSCRP, your homocysteine, all your lipoproteins, your ApoB, your ApoA1, and then you have your oxidized LDL, your direct LDL, and the complete lipid panel. And so I have different tiers, a 1 and a 2 and a 3, and it's been more expensive. But that one you can get your box delivered directly to your house. So Quebec right now, Montreal is good. Alberta is going to be Edmonton and Calgary. There's drawing centers there. Ontario is opening up. There's great moves in Ontario for that. And then British Columbia, I think Vancouver only. But it's a bit, BC is very difficult. It's very difficult.
But you
Very difficult.
can find nurses you can pay them and they'll come at home and actually draw your blood. I've
Yeah.
but it's undercover kind of thing.
Yeah. And if they can centrifuge, because it has to be centrifuge and spin and then shipped out, right? So that's why blood is precise. But that place in Montreal, they're very
Okay.
amazing.
We'll
It's easy.
put your information and people can contact you if they
Yeah,
want to do
sounds
that.
good.
Now, next thing I want to dive into is this whole genetic or I guess more epigenetic, which is the piece that we have control over. Um, I was saying I've always been told I'm MTHFR. I did in the first rounds of 23andMe. So that would have been what, like 10 years, maybe plus. I think I was in the first round. Um, and, right away, my functional medicine doctor was like, oh my gosh, that explains everything, your MTHFR. And so I want to talk about this because I've noticed some people are talking more about it, but there's so much confusion out there. Um, so let's just talk about genetic mutations and the importance of knowing, um, how you can get really bio-individualized information once you understand more of your genetic makeup, but also how you don't have to like start panicking about it because you can totally control it. And that's why we call it epigenetics.
Yeah, and there's so much to learn about genetics. There will always be more to come. But this is the thing, what I said before we started the show. You cannot be linear and singular when it comes down to specific genetic SNP. And so you have to look at the body as a whole. And so this is why, and as much as we want to say, oh, I can turn this on by taking this or turning it off, how? You can't see inside. So we only go by what we know. And one of my mentors and people I've been following along when it comes down to genetics is Dr. Ben Lynch. That's one of the
Yes, love
things.
him.
I love his book, Dirty Genes. So that's a
Yes.
great understanding. And you'll see that not a ton of genetics per se have a tremendous impact, but it's really a more narrow set of genetics. But there's some key things though, right? When it comes down to liver health, for nitric oxide, for vasodilation, cardiovascular system, which is one of the leading causes, disease in the world. So we want to make sure of that, which I do have genetics. So I'm prone to low nitric oxide. And that's why your diet will be more tailored. And you come to understanding that variety is really what has a diet with variety has the most impact on your overall genetics makeup. So when it comes to liver, and this is why a lot of people with MTHFR, if you don't have a lot of folate, which is all where you get where you get folate, but people with MTHFR, it's just simply, it's the little name that basically what it does, it helps activate your the folate vitamin B9 that you take from your food, from especially your like leafy greens, right, into the
Yeah.
active. But so for some people like yourself and this is why, like when we dive into your genetics, we'll see as to your levels, right? Because we all have MTHFR. I do have it, but I have 100% activity. My MTHFR converts folate B9 really, really well from my food, right? So I don't have the variance, right? Or people call it variance or mutation, but you do have copies in the 677 and the 1298C. So that will make yourself maybe at the lowering pole of either 23% or 48% activity of your capacity of being able to convert that B9 into an active form, which we call methylfolate. But also a lot of big mistake, people start loading up on B9, but they forget B2, which B2 in this activated form called FAD is super important for the thyroid function, right? So there's cofactors, there's coenzymes that comes in play when genetics, right? So there's vitamins and other minerals and byproducts that are needed to make this whole makeup work. That's why MTHFR, it's just not just that one thing,
No,
right?
no,
I
yeah.
don't have. So that's for you, and that's where people just start digging, but then you don't have enough of the other B vitamins, and you start, because if you don't have too much B9, you deplete your B12. Like you want to have, and it's not perfect all the time too, right? And it's just that's why I feel it's just epigenetics is really important. Is as much as we want to individualize, and this is why I do love one of my mentors, Joel Green. I've learned so much from him. And the thing is that we can individualize to a certain degree, but also we have to understand that there's, our ancestral, like the hunters and gatherers and all these times, they didn't have this, and had actually better health outcome in ways. So, but this helps you get a broad picture. So for you to really solidify your foundation, that my end goal is really your foundation. That's the end goal, for your liver health, your cardiovascular, hypoxia, how well you manage stress and cortisol, you impact. Like I said before the show, myself with a COMT, slow, meaning a AA type AA, which many people, I know I'm going to handle stress a lot different. It's going to be harder for me, but then I know I have to breath work. I have to meditate. I have to just add these little practices, but that does not come from a supplement. You
No.
know, you can
Yeah.
have
A lot of it is lifestyle based, 100%. Yeah.
exactly, and that's where my focus is more, and but having the right nutraceuticals also can really benefit a lot of people, right? So it really depends.
Yeah. So basically, if we were to recap, because you went deep there,
Sorry, I try.
I
I
have
try.
to reel you back in. The
Huh.
MTHFR is basically a genetic mutation, let's call it like that most people have. And it just means we have a harder time. If we were to generalize it, would you agree? Like we have a harder time to detoxify on our own. We kind
Yeah.
of need
So
some extra little help, like some extra TLC there.
yes, yes.
And in my experience, I felt such a dramatic difference when my functional medicine doctor started to look at my B vitamins. And it was just like, oh, no wonder I had been feeling this way. Let's say I was taking at the time, the multivitamin from Costco with a bunch of like synthetic B vitamins. None
Oh,
of them were methylated. And it was actually more toxic than anything else. So usually when I recommend B vitamins to my clients, I just assume everybody's MTHFR and I only recommend, methylated forms for the most part. But you go, deeper with those
yeah.
ratios and making sure it's individualized. And I think that's so great. And you were showing me the kind of reports that you get, and it's even down to really each micronutrient or even like proteins. How many proteins should you have? Or nitrous oxide. Are you able to produce it or not? Or right? It's super enlightening.
Yeah, it can get complex, but you just take because for me it's like especially when it comes to B vitamins, like I do well with different forms of like you can do adenosylcobalamin, which is a great one, which some people also right, a great different type of B12, right? So some people might do better if you get the jittery from methylated B12s, that can happen. Rarely depends on the dose, right? But this is where you can individualize a little bit with these. But you look also cross-reference with your blood work. That's where like a CBC panel to look at your MTHFR is a great thing. To look
Yes.
at your vitamin B2 levels, your B9, our red blood cell folate is a nice one. Your MMA, which is an amazing blood marker for B12 deficiency. It's the best. It's the all-star best blood marker for true B12 deficiency is your methylmalonic acid. You can do in the urine, which on our organic acid test, when you do an O test, you can see methylmalonic acid urine. If that's high, likely B12 deficiency, but you can do it in the blood too.
So, I'm just hearing you speak, and I'm just thinking, wouldn't it be so different if physicians were also trained to look at blood work this way? Because that's the problem is physicians right now, even if they were to run this panel, they don't have this version
Yeah.
this version of the story. They have the version that was primarily, designed by the pharmaceutical industry. And so they don't look at it with the same lens. And that is the problem right now, because you might be having a great doctor that will give you a requisition for these labs, but they're not going to be able to interpret them the way you are, for example, and give you like really important information that could save you from, like we were saying, like having your gallbladder removed or having a heart attack or having varicose veins even. Like it's just there's so much more that we can do that we have always been led to believe, right?
Mhm.
The whole system would work so differently if we could do it this way.
Yeah, I mean, it's reactive care, and that's what it is. They're incredible at this.
Yeah.
If you have a gallbladder attack and you're way too far, yeah, I mean, you might have well like take it out, but it is a common, just gallbladder removal. It's so common. It's over millions a year in the
Yeah.
US. I actually pulled out some data on that. But then here's the thing, if you can test a GGT and your CMP panel, you're going to have an elevated issues when it comes down to your liver enzyme, your ALT, AST, and your GGT specifically to the biliary tract and your bilirubins. So looking at those is crucial. But then if you don't look at this that way, then it's just going to be, it's that we're bridging the gap. That's all. That's really bridging the gap as to understanding more on the functional ranges, and because it gives you just a broader picture, and it's prevention. That's really what it is, right? So
Yeah. And that's really how we're able to tap into, longer quality of life, right? Health span. It's really all it's about. Okay. Well, I feel like this was this was amazing. Now you're going to you have this full genetic panel kind of consultation available. I'm going to get this done. I'm so excited to actually see the results. I will share it back. And I actually want my clients to go through this as well. So right now, where can people find you if they want to connect with you or geek further with you? How can they find you?
yeah, so you can mostly connect with me on Instagram. It's really my main platform that I go through. So it's Jean-Felix Turcotte _JFT. We'll put in the show notes.
Yeah.
But that's really the main place. Myself, website is being revamped, but there's so much on my Instagram, and I have the links to the store with all the different labs. So you can check this out. And then I also offer a complimentary discovery call as well. So a strategy call and see if that's the right fit. But at the same time, so that's mainly my main the genetics program. That's really one of the main things that I do. And yeah, so just can reach out on Instagram.
So grateful that some people like you went deep down that rabbit hole so you can really enlighten us, because this is so powerful. Thank you. And we'll put all these links in the show note. We'll put the link to your genetic test as well, so people have that right away. It's quite you get the box at home, you get consultation with you. It's quite in depth. You get something I saw the result. It's incredible. Down to micro details, but that matter.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just I build a side report along with the report that you also get from your genetics itself. But it's a simple and non-invasive test that you just do a little swab cheek on both sides of your cheeks at home. That's it. Send it back to the labs. We get the results in about 3 weeks. Then I have to go in.
That's quick.
And I really, yeah, it's much faster now. So I always stay safe about 3 to 4 weeks. Then I go in and just to make sure that I go through this whole report, make that whole report for yourself. And then after this, we dive into a deep dive call. And then people that have blood work already, then I take a look at that too, or that can be ordered separately. And then having a 6-week support to ask questions in a safe platform. So
amazing. Oh, this is so great. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. We could have gone in so many directions. We didn't even talk about parasites. We didn't even talk about
part two coming.
Yeah, we didn't talk about leaky
to.
gut. We didn't
Oh
talk
my
about all
goodness.
the things. But yeah, so we'll do a part 2. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. And yeah, we'll see you on the internet, my friend.
Sounds good.
Okay, bye.
The information shared on this podcast is for information purposes only and doesn't provide any medical advice. Vanessa Grutman does not cure, diagnose, or treat disease. Please consult your physician before trying any new protocol or product.